Hi everyone, so I'm here today to share the Hero Arts February 2019 Roaring 20s card kit, as well as the add-on products that were released with the kit this month. I'm also going to demonstrate 2 cards that I've made so far using this kit. So let's get started by taking a look at the contents of the main kit. So the main kit has a 6x8 stamp set right here, and it has lots of cute images of ladies and gentlemen dancing. We have a little lady on the right hand side who is wearing a fur stole and sipping a martini, and we're going to work with her a little bit later on. I'm going to show you how to make her fur coat look very realistic with some Copic markers, and I'll also give you some different color combinations to try out yourself in case you're interested. So there are also some dies with the kit, including this frame die, and then there are 7 dies for the individual images. All of the images don't have dies this month, so in particular the portraits of the men and women don't, so just keep that in mind when you're planning out your cards. So let's take a look now at the add-on products. And there are, let's see, 12 add-on products that were released with the kit this month. And to start, there is this ballroom window fancy die, which is just so cute, and I think it will pair nicely with some of the men and women portrait stamps from the main kit. It also reminds me of the ballroom scene from Titanic. There are actually a couple of stamps in this kit that remind me of Titanic, and I'll share those as we get there. Next, we have this diamond in the rough stamp and die set. And I guess this would be cute if you want to make some black silhouette dogs. I don't know what kind of dog that is. I didn't Google it before this voiceover, so apologies for that. Then we have this decoration stamp and die set, and this stamp set in particular really reminds me of that dragonfly hair clip that young Rose wore in the Titanic movie. And I think that you can make really beautiful stained glass looking images and decorations with that stamp and die set, and I'm sure I will be doing that as well. So if you want to make some invitations using the kit, there is this great Deco Celebrations stamp set that is good for invitations. There's also this vintage window fancy die that would also be nice, maybe to cut it out with some gold paper or some of the mirrored cardstock in the kit. We have a dancing music notes confetti die. And then we have this stencil that's called the Graphic Deco Stencil. And then another bold prints called the Deco Flourish Bold Prints. This one in particular, I think I'm gonna stamp this on black cardstock with some metallic embossing powder and then get out my metallic paints and just have some fun painting in some different patterns into the stamp. So I think that that's going to be a fun way to use it. I love this bold print. This one is called Deco in the City, and it's a great view of the New York skyline featuring the Chrysler building. Just such a great iconic image. And I think a good way to use this stamp would be maybe to take like a gray cardstock and just stamp the image with Versamark ink and leave it as is. As kind of like a nice soft background. And then there's also this arch pattern bold prints stamp, and this is another one I think it would be fun to get out the metallic paints and metallic embossing powders for. So let's move on now that we've seen all the add-ons and get started making some cards. So to start, these are 4 versions of the little lady in a fur stole that I had made last night, and I'll tell you a little bit later what colors I used, and I'm also going to demonstrate that technique. So for this card, we're going to take the main frame die that comes with the kit, and we're going to cut it out on some black cardstock. And now, because Art Deco is basically black and gold, those are the colors of Art Deco, I was just trying out some different gold specialty papers I had to see which might look good with this card. In the end, I decided just to go with black and white, but we will use the gold cardstocks later. So to start, we are going to make the fur on the lady's coat, and there are 4 different versions that I've made so far. The upper left version is with cool grays, and I use the same technique to make the fur that I did to make the cake from a video that I had posted 2 weeks ago. So it's the same exact stippling technique where you start with your darkest color and you just kind of stipple and make little dots, and then you keep going down the spectrum with your lighter markers until you get to your lightest and you blend it all together. And if that didn't quite make sense to you, don't worry, I'm going to demonstrate. The second fur coat in the upper right hand corner, that's done with cool gray markers again, but focusing on the darker end of the cool gray spectrum, so like C5 to C9 is that one. And then the pink one is made with R20, R30, R32, 34, and then RV 69 and 66. And then the mink version in the bottom corner is with all of the E70s markers, and I think it made a really, really nice mink version. So let's get started with our warm gray version, and I started with my W5, and I just made a bunch of little dots just like I did when I was making the cake, and I tried to focus the dots on the upper right hand portion and also outlining the edges of the fur coat. So what I'm trying to do here is I want there to be a lighter section towards the center of the fur, just to help to give the image dimension. I felt that if the entire fur stole had the same exact coloration, that it wouldn't look realistic, and that to help it make it realistic, especially because I wanted this to appear to be like a soft white or a light gray fur, I wanted to keep as much of the surface white as possible while still adding enough color to give the impression that we have the texture of fur. So that's kind of what's going on in my mind while I'm coloring this in. So I started with my warm gray in W5, and then I just worked my way down the spectrum from W5 to W3, W1, now we're on W0, and now I guess we're moving on to the hat. So for the hat, I am using the same warm grays, and I want the outside of the hat to be dark, and then I want the inside of the hat to be light, because I want her face to be visible and just kind of lightly framed by the inside of her hat. So for the shading on the hat, I'm going to use some W7 and just add some light little flicks there, just to put a little bit of shading and maybe also add a little bit of texture to the hat. And then I'm going to use my darkest color, my W9, on the very edges and sides of the hat. And then I'm going to blend everything together with W7 and W5. And then we can move on to the inside of the hat. And I'm going to keep it very, very light. I think W3 is going to be my darkest color, and I'm going to focus that towards the edges of the brim of the hat and try to keep that area around her face as light as possible. For her skin tone, the base is E000, and then the cheek is going to be some R30, and then I gave her some eyeshadow too with a W5. And then the shading on her skin, I'm using E00. Now, some other skin combinations you can try, and I did try a different skin combination and makeup combination for all of the ladies that I showed earlier. You could use E00 and E21. You could use E30 and E31 if you want darker skin. Or you could do like I did here with the E000 and then E00. For the martini glass, I use BG10, and the olives in the martini are YG95 and YG99. And I decided here, like I said, I wasn't going to use any of that gold paper. The only gold we're going to add to this card is going to be with the sentiment. So I used some gold embossing powder to make the sentiment. And I'm just kind of dusting off the anti-static powder tool remnants that were left behind. And then for the sentiment, I trimmed it down, and then I put some foam tape behind it, and then just stuck it to the card. And now I'm going to add some of the sequins from the main kit, just a few, and that's it. That is our first card. I love this one. I love her lovely little fur stole. I just love it. Okay, so moving on to the second card, I'm going to use some more stamps from the main kit, and I'm just going to use this one stamp for the four corners of our card panel, and then we're going to color it in with Copic markers. Now, when I stamped this originally, I thought I was going to leave it black, so I used my black VersaFine ink, which is really, really dark and crisp, but it's not very friendly with Copics. But then I decided to use my Copic. So what I'm doing is I'm just being really careful to not touch that black ink. So if you want to duplicate this card, I would recommend using a Copic Safe ink, maybe Memento black ink or Simon Says Stamp Intense black ink. Or if you could be really careful, I guess you could use the VersaFine too. So I'm going to make a gold pattern around the edges of the card, and the colors that I'm using are Y28, Y26, and then Y23. These are my favorite colors when I want to color something gold, and I think that these colors work particularly well with the whole Art Deco and Roaring 20s theme of this card kit. These aren't colors that I use very often because they're a little bit dull to me, and also I just don't use a lot of yellows or golds in my work, or at least not so far, but I did have a lot of fun using these and kind of making this design on the card. It was really, really nice and relaxing. So I urge you to get out your kits and check out some of the stamps, and just have fun stamping, and then making these little designs like this in whatever color palettes you like. And I didn't have any plan as I started. I just kept adding blocks, but I tried to do it symmetrically as I went around, and it ended up, I'm pretty happy with how it looks in the end. So most of it's going to be colored in gold, and then we're going to have those two little rectangles on each corner that are going to stay white. I'm just going to finish up the coloring here. Now we're going to stamp one of two sentiments we're going to use for the card. This one says, "Kick up your heels." And I'm using my black VersaFine ink, and I want the sentiment to stand out on the card, so I'm also going over it with clear embossing powder, and then I'll heat set that. And then for our second sentiment, we're going to use the stamp that says "Party Like It's 1922." And then I used white embossing powder for that. I'm heat setting it, and then I'm going to cut that down before we add it to the card. So off screen, I colored in and then cut out some more images from the kit. This little jukebox I cut out, and I colored it with my toner grays. And then I also colored in the little man and woman, and the only thing I colored on them was their skin. And I used E00 and E21 for that. I also used some little musical notes stamps from the kit to put the little musical stamps around the card. And then this is some Tonic specialty paper that I had bought a little while ago, and we're just going to use that for the panel. And for the little man and woman dancing, I cut some really, really thin strips of foam tape. It's just one layer. and then I'm going to attach them to the card as well. I wanted them to kind of pop up out of the scene a little bit. And I think they do. I think they're really cute. They look like they're having a roaring good time, right? And then for the sentiment, I just used some double foam tape, and that's it. So kick up your heels and party like it's 1922. These two little folks sure look like they are. All right, so those are my cards for today. I am gonna keep working and make some more cards, and I will be sure to share them with you. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and I would love to hear which of the cards you like best and how you're all doing with your card kits. All right, everyone, have a great weekend, and I will see you soon in the next video.